The stories we tell ourselves, whether they're heartwarming dramas or, things that keep you up at night, they're so much more than just entertainment. They're basically mirrors. They show us who we are, what we value, and maybe most importantly, what we're terrified of. So let's start on a positive note, right? Let's look at a story that really celebrates what we think it means to be human. All that good stuff like connection, love, and just sticking it out when things get tough. A great example is the film Nana. It's this incredible story about a father who's so devoted to his little girl. And it's that love that ends up helping his wife get her memories back after an accident. It brings the whole family back together. I mean, it's a story that screams from the rooftops that love and human connection can pretty much conquer anything. It's us at our very best. Okay, but for every story that builds us up like that, there's another one waiting in the wings that's all about what happens when everything just falls apart. What happens when that connection we value so much gets replaced by, I don't know, consumption? When love just disappears and all that's left is this mindless, destructive hunger. And that, my friends, is where horror comes into play. It's the genre where all those vague anxieties we have floating around in our heads stop being abstract, and suddenly they have flesh and teeth and a really, really insatiable appetite. Some of the best horror out there right now, especially coming out of Korea, gets this completely. It understands that the scariest monsters aren't always some creature hiding in the closet. No, it dives deep, deep into the human mind, into these characters who are psychologically unraveling. The horror feels so real because it's not about jump scares. It's subtle, proving that sometimes the most terrifying monsters, well, they come from inside us. And that leads us directly to our main event today, the zombie. Think about it. This is a creature that isn't just not human anymore, it's distinctly post-human. It's not just some monster that attacks us, it's a monster that was us. It's the physical embodiment of a complete and absolutely terrifying loss of self. So how did we even get here? The journey of the zombie in our pop culture is honestly a fascinating one. It didn't just pop up overnight. It evolved. And the way it changed tells us a whole lot about how our own fears have changed over time. Just look at how its origin story has transformed. You start in the 1930s, and the zombie is a product of voodoo magic, something supernatural. Then, boom, it's 1968, and George Romero's Night of the Living Dead hits the scene, suggesting a scientific cause, radiation from a space probe. Fast forward to the 2000s, and it's almost always biotech. It's a virus, a bioweapon, a genetic experiment that went horribly wrong. See the shift? The fear moved from the mystical and unknown to the scientific and man-made. The monster isn't an act of God anymore. It's an act of us. Now, this deep-seated fear of our own creations biting back, it actually has a name in science fiction. It's called the technological singularity. It's that hypothetical point in the future where the AI we create becomes so smart it just skyrockets past our own intelligence, becoming totally uncontrollable. Think Skynet in Terminator or the machines in the Matrix. It's the classic fear that the thing we build to serve us will end up being our undoing. And here's the big idea, the connection I want you to see. The modern zombie apocalypse is pretty much the biological version of the technological singularity. It's the same fundamental fear, just with a different flavor. Instead of an intelligence crisis with AI, you get a biological crisis with a virus. Instead of our inorganic creation, based on binary code, turning on us, it's our organic creation based on DNA that turns on us. The fear is identical. We made something we can't control, and now it's coming to wipe us out. So this brings us to a really important point. Are these stories anti-science? I don't think so. Not really. What they are is a massive warning sign against the reckless, irresponsible use of science. There's this quote inspired by an analysis of a story by Mikhail Bulgakov that just nails this idea. It says, the problem isn't the discovery itself, the problem is the implementer. That impatient CEO or general or politician who grabs the discovery and rushes it out into the world, driven by greed or ideology without a second thought for the consequences. In their hands, a brilliant breakthrough becomes a weapon of mass destruction. And this creates a formula, right? A terrifyingly familiar pattern that you've seen 100 times. Step 1, a brilliant scientist makes a breakthrough. Step 2, the same scientist says, hey, let's be careful with this. Step 3, an impatient corporation or military leader ignores them completely and rushes it into production for profit or for power. And step 4, well, it's always a disaster. That right there is the origin story of basically every modern zombie plague you've ever seen. So when you put it all together, what is this monster, this thing born from our own genius and our own impatience? What is it really trying to tell us about ourselves and about our place in the universe? For centuries, a lot of the world has operated on this idea called humanism. And it's pretty simple, really. It's a philosophy that puts humanity, right at the center of everything. It's all about celebrating our ability to reason, our free will, our status as individuals, and maybe most of all, this core belief that we are exceptional, that we're unique, and frankly, better than every other living thing on the planet. And then there's the zombie. The zombie is the ultimate anti-humanist. It's a walking, groaning assault on every single one of those values. It takes our prized reason and replaces it with pure, irrational instinct. It takes our precious individualism and dissolves it into a mindless, swarming horde. And its only goal? To wipe humanity off the map, a violent rejection of our claim to be special. But here's the deepest, most twisted irony of all. This monster, this thing that wants to destroy everything we are, was born from the very tool of our greatness, our science and technology, turned back against its creator. As one writer so perfectly put it, monsters ask us why we created them. The modern zombie isn't some demon from another dimension. It's a monster we built, a product of our own labs and our own hubris. It's a shambling, groaning question mark coming right at us. Which really leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling thought to chew on. When we look at these stories, these reflections of our deepest fears about technology and progress, are we just looking at a scary story, a simple warning designed to entertain us? Or are we maybe looking at a prophecy? A glimpse of what happens when we forget that progress without wisdom is really just a much faster path to the end.